we begin to see that we have crafted a persona or a facade, and that we have shown the world and even ourselves only the parts of ourselves that we think are most acceptable. So we are limited by this acceptable version of ourselves. And we start to feel this call to see who we are beyond that, beyond who we present to the world. We start to feel into this idea that maybe our real purpose and our whole selves are found at so much deeper of a level. In this time, our ego has been in the driver's seat. And then there's this transition. So when we move into this time of what is my soul asking of me, we realize that the ego still has a place, but the ego then becomes in service to our soul or in service to our truest self. I want to talk about first half of life living and second half of life living. It's not literally halves, it's really first part and second part. You could be going through this process very, very young, or it could be the last thing you're doing on your deathbed. But at some point, we are going to transition from first half of life living to second half of life living. It was an observation that Carl Jung made. And Carl Jung is one of my favorite psychologists because I really feel like he tries to come at the human from so much more than just our human existence, and to help us to see that we are really meant to be a whole being. And that when we cut off from parts of ourselves and we have shadows, that causes us a tremendous amount of suffering. He also acknowledges the soul. He acknowledges us beyond our human body and really helps us to map out what does life look like for us. There's a quote out there that the first 40 years is just research, and that after that, we really start living. So he really believes that we don't even start living until we're 40 years old. I love that approach because what it does is it makes us not wrong for the way that we've lived our lives so far. It makes us okay. And it helps us to see that perhaps there was purpose and value, even the struggle and the striving and the things that we've done. He says that the first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego, and that the second half is going inward and letting go of the ego. Like, that is so cool. The first half of life, we're answering the question, what is the world asking of me? And the second half of life, we are asking, what is my soul asking of me? You can see that the first half is really about building our sense of identity and importance and security. Freud might call that the ego self. You may have heard people call it the false self. The key thing that's really important to know is that it's super important to build a healthy ego. This is not something that we shouldn't be doing. There's not something wrong with doing this. It happens to look, from a lot of people's perspective, like this egoic, externally oriented time, because it is. It really is. It is a time actually for gathering titles and making money and earning degrees and building houses and finding partners and having children, procreation. And really, it is the time for achieving success according to external ideas. The central focus is on the development of the self who is secure, in control, and on purpose. But what happens is there's a point where maybe something happens in your life. Maybe it's some type of failure or a loss. You get fired. And what we start to realize is that who we believe ourselves to be in that time is not all of us. We begin to see that we have crafted a persona or a facade, and that we have shown the world and even ourselves only the parts of ourselves that we think are most acceptable. So we are limited by this acceptable version of ourselves. And we start to feel this call to see who we are beyond that, beyond who we present to the world. We start to feel into this idea that maybe our real purpose and our whole selves are found at so much deeper of a level. In this time, our ego has been in the driver's seat. And then there's this transition. So when we move into this time of what is my soul asking of me, we realize that the ego still has a place, but the ego then becomes in service to our soul or in service to our truest self. We realize that maybe the things we've used to define ourselves, maybe the things, people, titles, money, maybe they're not really what's true and real. They're skating on the surface, right? Maybe we're at this point trying to feel into what does the soul need? It becomes a little less about taking and accumulating, and maybe a little more about giving, connecting, and sharing. This time, as Carl Jung says, it's about going inward and letting go of the ego. It's about deconstructing the self that we have been working so hard to build in the first half of our lives. But what I don't want us to do is think that there's anything wrong with us or the ego, because the ego really has given us structure. It's the container, right? It's the container of us. It's what enables us to function and do things in the world. And it is even what enables us to be able to do this work, to go towards self-actualization. If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have to get your base needs met in order to be able to get your self-esteem, self-actualization needs met. So you have to have established a foundation. So let's not discount the value of what we have done. We're not looking to eliminate or reject the ego, but we don't want our ego to be driving our life anymore, right? We don't want that to be the primary thing. In the second half of our life, we are seeking purpose and meaning, but in a soulful way. The key thing that's most difficult is navigating that middle space, that transition period. That is the challenge of all of this. It's easy to see the two things, right? But how do you get from here to there? That is a challenge. And that's the premise of what the Whole Soul Way is bringing to the table here. It's what we are doing. We are walking ourselves from ego consciousness to soul consciousness. We are guiding ourselves on the journey to unhook from all the things that felt so important and necessary, whether that be actual things or whether that be fears, belief systems, programming, conditioning, shoulds, the pressure to be anybody but ourselves. It's not like it's easy to just shed all that weight with just a little snap of the fingers. It actually takes a process of unlearning, unbecoming, shedding, bravery, and courage. In order to do that, we have to have so much safety inside, because until that point, we have been depending on the outside world to validate us. We have been depending on our coping strategies to keep us safe. We have been depending on the ways we defend ourselves so that we don't get too hurt, or the ways that we creatively feel comfortable in the world. And what we're saying here is we need to move beyond all of that into the sense that, wow, I am good enough. I am safe enough. I can rest in my worth. I don't have to hustle for my worth anymore. I don't have to prove my value anymore. I see that I am valuable and lovable and likable for who I am. No more of these antics. But letting go of all that stuff, that's not an easy thing. Here's a slide that the left half of it's there and the right half will show up at the end. But I just wanted to just rehash this idea of what's the first half of life living. Wait, what does the world want from me? Building this strong container, being action-oriented, externally focused, status seeking, usually wearing some masks and personas, showing the part of us that we want other people to see. Sometimes we're more competitive and self-righteous and driven. We often are relying on our strengths. And as we get older, we realize that it's not always a good thing to be relying on our strengths, because we aren't the same people we were at our prime when we were younger. We have to begin to rely on other things. We often don't want to face our past in that time. We take our health for granted and we resist pain and discomfort, and we are often living our lives according to other people's expectations. One of the biggest regrets of the dying is that they didn't live their lives true to themselves, and that they didn't allow themselves to be as happy as they wanted to be. And that is something I don't want for any of you. In this time, our priorities are striving, safety, security, and success, and we're usually listening to the fear. It's the ego driving. This is another great example of the difference between the two. So when we're in our first half of life living, we're usually letting our inner child or our inner protector and our ego, I think of it as our inner protector, run the show. Usually we're doing a lot of coping. We're wanting safety. We're relating with guarded hearts and masks and defense mechanisms. And we're struggling and striving to prove ourselves. And usually we are not feeling that confident. We're not that stable, but we act like we are. There's a lot of fear, blame, and drama in this time. And usually we have an external compass. We're externally driven. And then when we shift to second half of life living and our soul and adult self are in control, we're thriving and we're aware. We're relating with generosity, love, authenticity, and courage because we are spilling over all of that. We experience more freedom, flow, fun, fulfillment, and more self-control and confidence, compassion, power, and courage. It is a time where our compass comes from within. We are soul led. Now, let's talk about this first half of life living when we have an external compass. Often we're living like we're a victim to life's circumstances and other people's opinions. We're living according to society's ideas and expectations of who we should be. We often don't feel like we have control over our lives. We do what we can to avoid discomfort and to stay feeling safe. And usually we're focusing on achievement, certainty, doing what's right, validation, and safety. So I made this slide a long time ago working with a client who was always afraid to be too happy because then she was afraid the other shoe would drop, but she also didn't want to be too sad. So she stayed between these two lines. I call it the comfort and safety zone. But the problem is that trying to manage her life to stay in there, basically like up here is like, what are other people going to think? What's acceptable? I can't even show that I'm too happy. I have to follow the rules of what's polite and I have to do what's right and I have to stay safe and I want to feel comfortable and happy. And that's up here, right? And then down here is like, oh my God, uncomfortable, discomfort, pain. Uh-oh, I can't do that because the other people will not like that. I'm going to disappoint people. Oh, I don't want to be excluded. Negative feelings, any fear of judgment. I'm not going to touch that. Mistakes, right? She wanted to live in here. So she managed her life, managed people, managed circumstances. But guess what? We don't have that much control over other people or life in general. We just don't. I know we wish we did, but we really don't. And we end up being thrashed around in life by all the waves that come up. Like something great happens. Oh my God, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Life is so good. Someone gets sick. Oh my God, my life is so horrible. Oh my gosh. I got a promotion. Oh, don't be too excited about that. You'll jinx yourself. Don't do that. Don't be too happy. Don't be too excited. Manage that. Okay. Don't show anybody you're too excited. Don't even brag because bragging is bad. It's this constant managing. And then because we're trying to manage people all the time, we're also dealing with that as a painful experience because they inevitably do not live up to the expectations. So we're trying to project our fears, our needs, our own self-judgment onto them in an attempt to keep them safe, keep them in line. Like if they do all the things that our fear brain is telling us they should do for us and for others and for themselves, they will be safe. So we're literally trying to keep our loved ones safe and keep us safe by playing by the rules, doing it all right, not doing things that are going to get us into danger. Don't get us kicked out of the tribe. Don't let us be humiliated or hurt or people withdraw love or something. No, follow the freaking rules, right? And that's our brains, our inner protector, our ego mind is like, stay safe, stay safe, stay safe, win love, win love, win love. Protect yourself, protect yourself, protect yourself. So we stay in here, but it is violent. We're trying to hold on to something to feel certain and secure. And then that's not secure. And it's like, oh my God, that was just a boat that's floating. And I'm still unmoored because I held on to something that was an illusion of safety, but there isn't anything because the only safety we can create is from inside. Okay. It is exhausting. We're always trying to do better. We're always having constant ups and downs. We are feeling all kinds of pressure and it is uncomfortable. Now, if you keep living that way, here's the problem. As you get older, there are a couple things that happen. To some degree, our capacity is limited as we get older, especially we get much older. But that's not a bad thing, because actually it's why we can't tolerate this BS anymore. And as our capacity to keep on the facade, keep all the images, as that capacity to hold on to all of that dissipates, it's almost like we can no longer live that way. I cannot live one more day this way. And that gives us the impetus to seek something else. We're trying to keep everything in control, and it's like beach balls in a pool, and you're trying to keep them all down, and you can keep this beach ball and that beach ball and maybe a third beach ball, but eventually you cannot hold them all down and they're just popping up. So the more out of control your life is, the more likely it is that you're trying to live within these two guardrails and that you're being invited to consider another way. As we continue to put up more walls and barriers, as we continue to believe it's them and I have to stay away from them, like that person's really uncomfortable and difficult. I don't want to see them anymore. I don't really want to hang out with them. Oh, like that social situation's really uncomfortable and I don't want to feel uncomfortable. So I don't think I want to go out and do that anymore. And when I do go out, I'm exhausted because I'm pretending to be somebody that I'm not. And oh my gosh, I'm using this strategy so that I don't have to feel anymore. And I'm constantly dealing with controlling things and I'm exhausted and people never live up to my expectations. And I'm always comparing myself to other people and I'm reactive and I'm tired. And I'm either always busy because I'm trying to distract myself or I'm totally lazy. And then I feel like crap about myself. And are you exhausted? I'm exhausted just saying it. And what happens is over time, instead of us being expansive beings that we're meant to be, we start shrinking our life so that we could feel safe. We keep shrinking and shrinking because we don't want to deal with all that. So we try to make ourselves safer. So we don't go out as much. We don't do as much. We only hang out with the people who are really comfortable for us. Now, there's some of that that's actually true and real and important. Like at some point, we do have to get rid of the relationships that are really, really weighing us down. But that's different than avoiding conflict, avoiding conversations, not hanging out with people because they're just being themselves or that we feel uncomfortable, but really they're actually like pretty amazing people or whatever. But not only that, we may start to be more quiet. We might not share our point of view. We think, oh, nobody really cares about our point of view. So we start shrinking our life by being smaller and smaller and smaller, quieter and quieter and quieter, shyer and shyer and shyer. And that's separate from being an introvert, by the way. Shy is usually more about fear. And we indulge our fears and our life gets smaller. And I just want you to know, I really saw it with my mom who ended up with dementia. I watched her shrink her life. Now, some of it was the dementia, but some of it is my mom always considered herself to be shy. And so she did the things that felt comfortable and didn't do anything that felt uncomfortable. So she never pushed her edges of comfort and safety. And so her life just kept on getting smaller and smaller. Louise Hay says that Alzheimer's disease is wanting to check out of life, wanting to no longer be here anymore. It's a way of not having to fully participate in life to an extreme. And of course, we know there are also many other reasons. And so I don't want to give the impression that that is the thing, but I do believe that it is a part of it. Just like anything, it's like mind, body, spirit, right? So I wanted to share with you two other ways to look at this. One is that you start off with an edge. Okay, your edge is like your persona or who you are that makes you different and makes you unique. And the separation is actually fundamental to ego consciousness. But as we get older, what can happen is that we get entrenched in our persona, our identity. We get like, this is just who I am. I've always been this way. This is who I am. Perhaps even moods start to solidify into personality traits. Like, I'm just shy. I've always been shy. I'm just a curmudgeon kind of person. I just don't like people. I just don't like to go out. I like to read and be quiet. But those edges begin to become walls and they get built up and then we become imprisoned in the walls that we built. So if you look at these images right here, we basically go from like, this is me. And it's kind of like this free and semi-permeable membrane of us to the world. But then it's like, oh, no, this is what I want life to be like. And I start controlling it. And then I only want to feel these feelings. I only want to feel good feelings. I do not want to feel painful feelings. I just want to feel happy, peaceful. Can I just please feel happy and peaceful? My life has been so hard. And then we start building up walls. I only do things that make me feel this way. And then, God, I can't do those things. Like, it's too scary. I need to feel more safe. I need to feel in control. So we build up more walls, and then we end up with this small life, small self. And that is the journey for a lot of people. And what we want to do is move in the other direction. But let's just go with one more image, which is how we cut off our life force. When we're young, we flow, right? But as we get older, we get more afraid. And as we get more afraid, we start to try to change and adjust our life to stay safe. We're always trying to anticipate what's going to happen bad if I do this. It's too scary. I don't want there to be this waterfall, something that's going to mess with my life. And we just keep on narrowing our life. And then we stop flowing. Our vitality and life force energy gets cut off. And each one of these rocks represents a way that we are trying to manage and avoid our life. And then that it blocks it up and it becomes less flow, less vitality, less aliveness, less vibrancy. So we have to be brave. Now, this is the vision of living differently. I want you to think about those guardrails. Let's turn them this way, right? So they were this way. Let's go. They're going to turn on this way. And we're going to say guardrails were not meant to limit you. They're meant to guide you. They're meant to show you that, like, oh, look at me. I came up an edge, right? Oh, I must feel safer here. That doesn't mean you stop there. I have an acronym that I love to use, which is ELATE, explore life at the edges. That if we want to feel elated in our life, we got to explore life at that safety and comfort edge. That's it. We cannot stay in our safety and comfort and even familiar zone. Now, do we need to do it boldly? Do we need to go do drastic things? No, it's just that every time you get to the edge, instead of going back in, we go, I'm kind of curious about this. I want to know what's going on. So every time we touch an edge, it's not to say, come back in, be smaller. It's to say, what else can we do? What's going on inside of me? Who am I? Who do I want to be? Am I brave enough to take a tiny little action? Now, our soul way GPS is that internal guide, and it guides us to our true north. Now, I don't believe our true north is one thing. I just want to be really clear, but I believe that it is a strong center. Some people call it your will. It's the center that connects you to, say, source, life force, God, if you believe in that, and Mother Earth. It's like the line that holds us from our earthly existence to our divine soul experience. From the sacred to the profane is what some people will say. It's like the connection between all. So it's this center line. And you can imagine if you are a pillar or a tree, no matter what happens, the wind is blowing, the waves are thrashing. Yes, sometimes I fall down, but they were probably meant to. And we will fall down someday, right? That is inevitable. But for now, we are strong and centered in our truth, right? Right here. It's like a tree expanding, growing, new leaves, new ideas, new expressions, new connections underneath the ground. The tree is connecting at this deeper level to everyone and everything. Right? We are interconnected beings, and this is our center. And we need to be us because we didn't come here to be Joe or Sarah or Sally. We came here to be us. We need to be in our true north, connecting into the earth, connecting to everyone, connecting up and out to everything, and creating our greatest expression. So this is the key, right? So waves are going to come and go. Stuff is going to happen. That's life. What are you going to do about it is the key. So we become one that doesn't reject part of our experience or ourselves. We become one that says, I am not going to argue with reality anymore. I'm going to love my life, even when it includes loss and pain and disappointment, even when I feel anguish and sadness, and even when I feel hurt or when someone disappoints me, even when I miss the mark, I make a mistake, even when I fail and I'm ill. No matter what, we become in this intimate relationship with who we are in our entirety, rather than rejecting ourselves or our experience. We begin to suck the nectar out of life. There's some appreciation for that. Life is short and life does go by fast. So we no longer want to be one who is rejecting and resisting this amazing thing called life. Let's talk again about where we're going. So first half of life living, what does the world want from me? Then we do this work. The whole soul way is this work in the middle, unhooking from the fear, programming, pressure, and all of the other ego constructs. We build enough cognitive strength and even inner strength, but the cognitive strength initially to resist the brain's powerful pull towards safety, security, and acceptance, because you will always feel that for a very long time doing this work. You will still feel the pull. The question is, do you have the strength to choose something else? We'll cultivate the inner safety through self-connection and through reparenting our inner child, through self-love, through acceptance. And we'll heal from our past traumas and integrate all of the fragments into wholeness. And integration and wholeness equals aliveness. When we feel that center line, when we feel like we have recollected all of our parts of ourselves and we come into wholeness, we feel more alive. Our life force is able to flow through us. We're no longer spending so much time trying to not be the things that we think are unacceptable, or not feel the things that we're afraid are going to take us down and are uncomfortable, or to hustle for other people's approval and validation, or to do whatever we can to win the love and approval of others. We drop the armor and the weapons and we surrender to life itself. We surrender to the belief and the deep inner knowing that we are not a mistake, that we are perfect exactly as we are. And we begin to honor and acknowledge that perfectly imperfect us, that flawsomeness, the flaws and the awesomeness, the perfect and the imperfect, the sacred and the profane, all of it, the light and the dark, all extremes. We bring it all into wholeness, and we begin to see that we have been put here for the precise reason of being us, for the evolution of our soul. Our soul was given the beautiful gift of a human life with the intention of expansion, with the intention of knowing itself, becoming more of itself, becoming more whole, and expressing, connecting, creating, and truly appreciating the interconnectedness of all of us. That's the gift. That's the beauty of the second half. I was listening to someone talk about how we used to live a shorter life and everything was about survival. People died when something bad happened, like illness or injured or dying in war or famine or these horrible things, right? Lives were cut short. We have been continuing to live longer. There are some people that would make the argument it is because of the evolution of our souls. We are now more than just the human being, that our creator needed us to get to a certain level of evolution before we were safe enough to be able to do this soul's work. So we keep living longer, but our bodies don't necessarily last the way that we would want them to be, right? So perhaps the body does begin to get more tired, does have less of a capacity, does shift. Our strengths are no longer the same strengths anymore because, younger people come up and now they have something new to offer. Perhaps it's the diminishment of some of the human drive that allows us to let go and to move into this way of being, so that we can more gracefully and from gratitude move into living from our soul and living the second half of our lives in a way where we step into being wise, not reject aging, but bask in it, see what's beautiful. I believe anybody who doesn't do this work will fight against the aging process. They will continue to try to stay younger. Now, I'm not suggesting that we don't do everything we can to be physically healthy, vibrant, strong, nourish our bodies with healthy foods, do right by our body, because this vessel is what holds that beautiful soul. And so I want it to last, but not to get so hyper-focused on the body and all the physicalities of our lives. Of course, we need some things to be fundamentally safe in this world. We need some money access to food and housing. We need some basic things, right? I'm not minimizing any of that, but to not be hyper focused and to allow that which was in the past to be the past. Try not to hold on to who you were, identities from the past, relationships from the past, but to allow them to slip away so we can move into where we are now. So, second half of life living, what does my soul want from me? We move into this beautiful place where the ego and the body are in service to that beautiful soul. We move into intentional action. What do I want for the rest of my life? We cultivate a rich interior. Maya Angelou says if you're dependent on your beauty, you will be very disappointed when you get older. You must cultivate a rich interior. And that was a botched translation of one of her quotes. We focus on relationships and even removing obligation. That doesn't mean we're not in deep service. We may be in deep, deep service to others, to communities, but we come from the place of like, we wish to share. We are living true to ourselves with great self-love and authenticity. We're coming into wholeness. We are willing to look at our shadows. We don't want to die having not seen all of who we are. We start to understand the human condition is multifaceted and complex. We are far more open-minded and curious. We may be softer, but like soft power, right? Soft power. We may begin to experience the tenderness that comes from being impacted by others, by being moved, not from the place of we need to fix or change, but just the sheer acknowledgement of what we've been through, how life can be really hard and messy and filled with loss, pain, joy, blessings, gifts, and beauty, and that we were willing to hold it all. We integrate our past and we tend to our mind, body, and spirit, not just our body or our mind, but the whole thing. We become open to feeling, but again, not based on the stories in our head that our ego plants there that cause us so much suffering, but from the place of sheer awe of how much we can experience the depths of grief and the limits of joy and pleasure and blessings. It's like not wanting to miss out on one drop of life. We are beginning to ask ourselves these existential questions like, what is the meaning of life? Who am I? Why am I here? Why are all of us here? We are following our soul's path. When we follow our soul's path, it's like the yellow brick road. It kind of starts to unfold. It's amazing when we get out of ego consciousness that we're not struggling as much. It's like if you really are in alignment with your soul, it unfolds. We begin to rest in our worth. We really feel and know our intrinsic value because we see that, yes, we can do amazing things in this world. And we can write books and we can build businesses and we can change things and do cool things in the second half of your life. Man, you have so many opportunities to do so much in this world. But it's not coming from the place so much of, I want to feel like other people think I'm amazing. But it's because you have something to express. You don't want to die with your song in you. You don't want to have not been all of who you are. You don't want to have missed out on experience and all that there is. Maybe there was something about legacy, or maybe there's just something about not wanting to be a being that didn't fully express herself because she was afraid. You want to be the person who says, no, I have something. I came here for a reason. I want to be that. So on the journey, we are stepping into that more emotionally, spiritually, psychologically whole and mature woman that we came here to be, but that it takes time. We have to find our way. There's been no wasted time. Everything you've experienced has been beautiful and precious and exactly needed to get you exactly here. You are exactly where you need to be. You are on a journey. The journey is yours. It is a beautiful unfolding, and be grateful that it is happening now and that it's not just happening in the last one moment before you die. In this time of our second half of life living, we often also experience if we are open to it. More play. We enjoy life more. We know how to be more. It's okay to just be. We don't have to always be doing. We feel a sense of peace just in being. And some people will go through this journey earlier, but they will still bridge between the two longer. There's no right or wrong way to do this. There's no specific time to do it. It happens when it happens and when you heed the call. So I am so glad that you're listening to your soul's calling and you are finding your way. And the whole soul way is bridging the gap between first half of life living and second half of life living and giving you a map for how to continue to spiral through the journey to become more and more soul led.